All right, everybody, I'm back again. One more week of betrayal. I'm John Alite. Hit the click button, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and let me dive into today's show. Today's show is about a woman named Carissa, wrote 7 books. Her latest is Hitman. Let me give the audience a little background of what we're going to discuss today. Today, we're going to discuss the book you wrote about a guy named Zach. I knew him as Jimmy Easy, James Easy, had a brother Johnny, both very wild guys. Originally, when the podcast came out in your book, a lot of people contacted me, actually dozens, discussing is this guy a fraud or is he real? And I didn't pay attention at first. Then I started looking into him. He used a lot of names that I was familiar with, and I knew who he was. I knew him from the street as James Easy. He actually was a wild guy, so was his brother. So for the people who think that he was a fraud, he's not. I know him for a lot of years, and not in a good way. He was an adversary of ours, meaning the Gambino family. So for the people that don't know, there's going to be several names that we're going to be brought up. One is Joe Messina. The other is Wild Bill. Those were guys that he was involved with. There are also other guys that were friends with me. I'm friends with Wild Bill's son, Billy. And he had a problem, James. And I was told by the Gotti family, junior and senior, to hurt James. But I want you to introduce yourself, how you got to know James as Zach, and how you started writing this book in particular.
It was actually kind of random. He found me on Facebook, and he reached out to me. And my name on Facebook is author Carissa Gillespie, so clearly I'm an author. I post all my books, everything on there. He said he kind of researched me a little bit and wanted to pick my brain. He said, I have a story I want to put out. And so I said, okay, let's hear it. And he told me a little bit about it. And I said, this is definitely a new genre for me. I haven't written anything about crime and murders or anything like that. And so it was really cool to kind of learn a little bit about it and hear his story. And so I went ahead and told him I would do it. And my family is from Sicily as well. And so a little bit further up the line, like great grandparents and stuff, they were involved in the Mafia too. And so I've always wanted to learn about it, and I never really knew much about it. I only know what my family had, like what my family knows, right? And so it was like, is really intriguing to me, like listening to how it works. And then, the more people I'm talking to, like you and a few other people, and the more I'm learning. I did watch the first couple episodes of both of your Netflix shows that you're in. And that was, kind of, I'm hearing names in there that I've heard about and different things. And so it was really interesting to me. And then hearing a little bit about your story and stuff it's been fun learning about it all. So
did you write this based solely on James's account of what happened, or was it, did you check it through other sources, or is this solely on how he told his life story?
So this is just solely on his life story to the best of his knowledge, the words that were coming out of his mouth. It's a memoir, basically. So I did not do any research. This is just based off of his life story and how he remembers things, or what he wanted to share.
Well, here's some things, because one of your friends reached out to me because my name was mentioned, that I knew him and that I was a wild guy. And I guess he mentioned my name somewhere during this. And you reach out to me through a friend, and I got back to you. So I'm going to authenticate him. The parts of what I heard from some of the parts I read in the book and from the podcast that you guys did. So if people don't know, you sat alongside him on a podcast that I thought the interviewer did a pretty good job, except he didn't really explain who you were. So for the people that didn't understand, I thought either you were his partner or you were an author. I knew it was one or the other. It really
Yeah.
wasn't explained for the people who didn't know. But also to authenticate him, and he did cooperate, I believe, around 2005, if I got those years
Mhm.
right. But on his behalf, he cooperated against a regime of bosses that were all cooperating. And here's where I talk about the mafia is not the same when Joe Messina, the boss, is wearing a wire. His brother in law, Salvatore, the underboss, is cooperating. His concierge and about 12 captains. We're putting
Mhm.
Jimmy in a place where people call people cooperators. I wouldn't call him a cooperator. I'd call him a guy that's responding to a whole crime family that just cooperated. So, and
Right.
my knowledge of Jimmy, because we heard him a couple of times, was and I listened to what he had to say on the podcast, and he was accurate. He
Mhm.
used names like Jimmy D'Ambrosio, who was around Junior Gotti at one time. He did sell fireworks. James was told not to sell fireworks in our neighborhood, just like
Mhm.
Sammy Albano was told also. And I'm the one that gave Sammy that message from Gotti Sr. that no fireworks are going to be sold in our neighborhood. And the reason why Sammy was outed with Senior, he owed him 50,000 and they had family situation going on. So the James telling these stories is accurate. He also brings up a guy, Chris Habis, who lived around a corner from my wife or my children's mother, not legally married, but I knew Chris when he had problems with James. And I also knew
Okay.
Chris when they tried to shoot him. Now, I didn't know who was trying to shoot him. Chris came to me and said somebody tried to shoot him. Chris stayed around the corner from my house with a guy, John Chalpy, that owned the lemon tree at the time, who also I hurt on behalf of the Gotti family. His ex-wife was there, and Chris would stay there, and he was followed a couple of times. And so he also spoke about Chris, who was also around our family, the Gambino family. So some of the names he threw out, including Wild Bill and Rudy, is accurate because we had a sit down with Wild Bill over James after we first
Right.
baseball batted him the first time. But on his behalf, we all get hurt. I got baseball batted several times. I've been shot and stabbed up. But if you put yourself out there like James did, this is what goes on in that world. And he was defiant even after the first time we batted him. He went and he threatened to kill Gotti Jr., and that's accurate also. I wasn't there at the time, but the father said the second time we were supposed to hurt him, Gotti Sr., hurt him bad, don't kill him. But he came very
Mhm.
close to being a victim of murder. Uh, but you go ahead and you tell me, exactly, did you get into any of these conversations about myself, about, some of the things, the activity he did?
It was kinda interesting because I have heard your name. I did hear different things. From what I'm understanding, uh, he said you weren't involved.
Well, I guess he didn't know I was involved. So I was the guy that batted him the first time. The second time I sent guys to bat him in Brooklyn. Um,
Okay.
but to clarify that situation, he was dating a girl that was friends with Bella Vita's owner, Tommy. Tommy was around Pete Gotti. And at one time, Pete Gotti was the boss and flip flop between him and his brother John when he was in prison, Junior Gotti. And at that time, uh, he was warned to stay away from Tommy from Bella Vita's good friend. He was dating the daughter. He slapped the guy. He took his boat. He took money off him. He was warned and didn't take the warning. And then we batted him. I was at that batting actually, me and two other guys. The second time he
Okay.
went after a guy from Atco, uh, Amico, Jimmy Amico, we call him on Cross Bay Boulevard. And his account of that situation was also accurate. Jimmy Amico did have a gambling problem. And he went after him and he
Mhm.
was told by Gotti, stay away. Gotti, the son, met with him, told him no more fireworks in the neighborhood. He didn't like what Gotti told him. He tried to defy that order. They had words. I wasn't there. I don't know exactly what he said to him, but he came back to Gotti Senior this time, and
Mhm.
he actually told me to send guys and make sure you hurt him real bad this time. So he got a second baseball batting beating in Brooklyn. After that
Okay.
incident, he went to his. It went up to the bosses, which Joe Messina at the time was in prison. But Wild Bill at that time was a skipper. He came to sit down. I went with Pete Gotti and Bobby Borriello. We met in Brooklyn. James was there. And I was told before we got there by Gotti Sr., make sure I say intentionally during that stand up and say you'll kill him, which I did. And it was also a show. They wanted me to belittle him in front of his guy, and his guy obviously wasn't going to try to accept that. And there's usually things behind that. And that occurred, whatever occurred, that was after the sit down. So the things he did say, some of it's accurate, some of it maybe he didn't know. Maybe he didn't know I was the guy that
Mhm.
actually batted him. Obviously, when you're getting batted, you're not really looking to see who's batting you. Um,
Right.
but again, he was accurate about some of the stuff he did say. He definitely was a wild guy. His brother Johnny was a wild guy also. And his family did betray him. Part of the life. But he is very lucky because Gotti was, the father was contemplating killing him. And for whatever reason, he said, don't kill him, hurt him bad. And that's what he did. But he was very close to being killed. I don't believe he was ever charged with any kind of murders or shootings like that. But he was wild. He was a little guy, but tough. And so was his brother. So there's the accuracy of some of those things. And the family members that are involved in these, it went up to the bosses. So this wasn't an isolated incident of just made guys involved. It went all the way up to the top because there was a lot of money involved at that time, especially in the
Right.
fireworks. Gotti Sr. took that very personally, and his son, who was
Mhm.
later on a captain and became the acting boss of our
Right.
crime family.
Okay, I have a question for you. So I heard something about a quadruple shooting.
Oh, you're talking about Metropolitan Avenue. I
Mhm.
went in. It was another family over. We had an incident with them, and I went in and looked to shoot the owner. I shot one of the managers and three other employees. Uh, and after that shooting, several families got involved. It was the Colombo family at that time, our family, and it also involved the Bonanno family on the outskirts of what we were doing with the unions
Okay.
at that time. So yeah, it is accurate. I did that back in Queens. It was a place called Kickers. It changed several times as
Mhm.
the ownership. And these incidents, people, that are not in the mob world, especially in our day, getting
Mhm.
shot or getting hurt was normal. It was a weekly occurrence. Getting killed also was something back in those days that happened a lot. And that incident also went to several sit downs about possibly killing certain guys. So guys guys in that world back then understood the
Mhm.
consequences of opening your mouth and talking. There wasn't that much talking. It was either, you perform uh, what you're told to perform. You don't ask questions, and what goes on after that by our bosses is something else. Now, for the people that don't know, I believe Jimmy's last name is Sirocco. So, whether people know that or not, I would think the people that know him. He mentioned he had a problem in the book. I think you mentioned it also that he was locked up for gambling with Nicky Carrazzo. So I think that was one of his co-defendants in one of his cases. And Nicky was and one of the acting bosses of the Gambino family over the years. So he does. Jimmy's very accurate on what he says. I mean, every detail he might not know, like the fact that I was the guy that Gotti personally sent, and the guy Gotti told me to send to hurt him a second time. He doesn't know the details that he was very close to being killed, but he's not stupid. He knew life, and
Yeah.
he knew that probably that was the consequences. Now, with the Chris Habis shooting, if they would have known he tried to kill him with his buddy, he would have been killed, especially doing that in our neighborhood. So he,
Right.
in that world, there's a lot of guys that are very dangerous, and when you're especially
Sure.
screwing with that time with the boss of our family, John Gotti's power, he's very lucky. He wasn't. We weren't told to kill him. But going into your book, when you started writing that book, how long did it
Mhm.
how many interviews did you do with him? How long did you take to do with him?
It was a daily thing. So I was on the phone with him, FaceTime with him, like day in and day out, early mornings, late nights. I spent about, not necessarily on the phone with him, but working on the book. I spent about 10 to 11 hours a day, every single day. He was sending me voice messages of things to add in there. We talked on the phone, we FaceTimed, we went over different things. He was sending me messages of, oh, add this in there and just different things. And it took me about, from beginning to end, probably about a month and a half, working 10, 11 hours a day on it, 7 days a week.
Yeah, because a lot of these books, it's a bestseller, isn't it? The book,
Hmm.
and a lot of these books, because it takes time. It's someone's life that you're writing about. From, I guess you introduce him as a kid and how he came up, and I believe he was around Rudy,
Hmm.
if I have that correct. Is
Yeah, Rudy Ferrone was his captain.
Yeah. So, I knew he was around Rudy. I don't remember back then if I knew he
Hmm.
was around Rudy or not, but over the years, I heard he was. I don't know if his brother was also around Rudy.
I don't know. I don't know much about his brother. It wasn't really talked about much.
Okay. His brother was wild too. And neither one was ever made. And, people don't understand that either. It's the guys that are out doing the work, the guys that are putting in the muscle, the guys that are out hurting people, robbing people. He was an aggressive guy. He was smart too. He knew how to make money. So, there was some good qualities about him. Obviously, that's why they wanted him around. Um,
Right.
but when you started writing this book and you were constantly talking to him and meeting with him, and did you ever question uh, his to yourself? Now, was he authentic? Was he giving these names he was throwing out and dropping? Were they real guys? Were they, fictitious names? Is it? Did you believe his storyline?
I wasn't too sure because I didn't really know, right? I didn't really know much of like knowledge on the life or anything like that. And so some stuff was kind of hard to believe that is actually true. Some of the stuff just made my head spin a little bit. Some of the stuff made my stomach turn a little bit. But I mean, all I can go off of is his story, right? Whether it's true, exaggerated, I don't know. And hearing other people's stories, like the truth is in the middle somewhere. Um, but he had enough knowledge with things that, the more I worked with him and the more I was writing his story, the more believable it became. Um, but yeah, I didn't really have anything else to go off of other than to just, learn his story.
Well, your friend that knows me, that wrote me, obviously knows my history, and he wrote me and he asked for me to if I would contact you, which we did. And so I'm here not only to interview, but also to tell you that the parts that he discussed is accurate. He's not a killer. He doesn't claim to be a shooter. He was a wild guy. Did he try to shoot a guy or two? Or kill Chris Habis? I don't know. I wasn't there. Do I think that he's telling the truth? Yeah, I do, because of the rest of what he said is pretty honest. And even the fact
Mhm.
that he didn't know I was one of the guys that batted him also makes him a pretty honest guy. Yet he spoke
Mhm.
about reaching out to me. So I think he's, he was in those days. It's very hard for anybody at this point unless you live that world, and if you're from Tennessee or Kentucky or from Utah or any of these other places, you wouldn't believe, because it seems unimaginable for such
Mhm.
violence to go on the way we grew up. But
Right.
it actually did, and he was around some very serious guys, and they did betray him. So,
Mhm.
there's a lot of things that I'll authenticate for you as an author and for people that want to read that book. I think you did a good job on it. I don't know who taught you the lingo. Did you just teach yourself, or did he help you to talk about the
He
lingo
I
itself?
mean, I had to do some research on it, but he mostly I learned that all from him.
And his point in his life, I guess he's moved on with his life. He's in business. He
Mhm.
has children. Uh,
Yep.
he righted a wrong of his life, from what I understand also. He changed his
He
life.
what?
He righted a wrong life, where he
Oh,
stands today. He's on a different path.
yeah, a completely different path. He doesn't, as far as I know, he doesn't really associate with it. He doesn't associate with anybody that was in it. He's changed his life around for his children, and he runs a business, and he just kind of he lives the family life now.
Now, did you discuss yourself at all, your upbringing in this literature that you any of your books, or is it just solely
Yes, there is a brief description on the back of the book. This book is solely on Zach's life. But my very first book that I wrote, because I've written 7 books, my very first book that I wrote is actually on my life. So I did an autobiography. It's more of a faith based, I'm a strong Christian. And so it's more of a faith based autobiography of myself. So that one I was a little bit vulnerable in, and that one did really well too. It I had all kinds of people wanting to interview me and different things because of things that I've been through in my life and stuff.
and
So
where are your books at?
yeah, they're all on Amazon, just under Carissa Gillespie. You'll find all my books there. They're also on barnesandnoble.com. I think walmart.com. They're on, I think my first book's on like 15 different websites. It's kind of crazy. And my other books did really well. This one is on the same platforms. And yeah, my main platform I use is Amazon. So that's where you'll find all my books.
And on as a Christian, what do you believe in redemption as far as anybody's life? My life, your own life, uh, you call him Zach's life, or I call him James still. So, what do what's your thoughts? What's your beliefs as far as judgmental and people judging people that live the wrong life and in any aspect of?
I probably have a different thought process than a lot of people. I'm a little bit different in that way. I have a very strong faith, and everyone makes mistakes, right? Everyone's been through something. Everyone has a past, and I myself, I don't judge anybody because who am I to judge, right? It's not my job to judge. I believe anybody can come back from something they've been through, something that mistakes they've made in their life. Uh, and me as a strong Christian, I believe in repentance, right? I believe that, Jesus died on the cross for our sins for a reason, right? And we are forgiven. But my thought process on it is we can ask for forgiveness to repent for our sins. But at the same time, if you're repeating the same thing, not that, we're not going to be forgiven, but it's almost like a trust thing. Like I see it as like if my kids do something wrong and they're like, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. And then they do it again and again and again, right? If they're repetitive with it, then it's harder to trust somebody, right? So I kind of feel like that's how it is. Like if you turn your life around, I definitely believe in repentance and redemption and, being able to change your life for the better and turn away from what you've done in your past. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that answered my question. Here's my next question.
Mhm.
When you have how does Jimmy refer himself, as a cooperator, as a rat, as a stand-up guy, as somebody that just there's got to be a way he looks at himself. Did he mention to you how he looks at himself?
Maybe a little bit of all the above. Um, I think he like, I think yeah, I would say all of them.
Well, because
I've heard him mention, we're rats, da 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 da. He cooperated. He was an associate, and I want to say there was another thing, uh, but I don't remember what it was. Pretty much just being in the streets and being, uh, what's the word? I guess involved, but he didn't really claim to be like, you know, any like a boss or, anything like that. But
No, well, he was a street guy, a wild street guy. He was around guys. He wasn't a killer. I mean, he was out there, doing a lot, running the streets, uh, shaking down people, extorting people,
mhm,
gambling. I don't know if he was in the drug business. He did robberies. I know he did a lot of things running around. The part I'm having a hard time with, I'm curious how he could call himself a rat, a cooperator, and a informer when his whole regime from boss down ratted. They were wires. They cooperated. And so I'm just curious how people listening to this would look at him if everybody in his whole crew that are made guys, that are underbosses, concierges, and captains were all cooperating before Jimmy came in. So I'm just curious what people think. I have my own opinion, and that obviously I'm always outspoken about this. Uh, there is no loyalty in that world. The name of my show is Betrayal, and he's betrayed on. So I don't look, and he owes, in my opinion, personal opinion, he owes, he doesn't owe anybody anything. They betrayed
mhm,
the life that they swore an oath to, and they betrayed him also. He never swore an oath to anybody, but I
right.
believe in self preservation, especially when guys aren't loyal to you. Um, and he put himself in a position where guys like myself, on orders of my bosses, meaning Gotti
Mhm,
Sr. at that time, Pete Gotti, uh, and Bobby Borriello, who was also a personal friend. If they say kill this guy, he was getting killed. It's like flipping a coin. So he was put
right.
out there to earn money for them, and then he was left out there, and then these guys went forward and started cooperating. So who is he
Mhm,
going to be loyal to is the question. And I was just curious what he thinks of himself and why he goes by another name because he just wants to wash himself completely away from that life, or is it because he's worried about somebody looking for him, or is it because he's got children and he just looks at life differently as a businessman? I look at it as a certain way. People know how I look at it, that it was a waste of our lives, me especially because of the violence I committed, a little different than what he
right.
was doing.
I do. So he doesn't really talk about like where he's like what label that he had, when he was in the streets and stuff. I do know, which talks about in the book too, that he, going through the witness protection program, they changed his whole identity. They had to a couple different times because he couldn't stay out of trouble or whatever. And I think since that, um, I do know at one point it had to get changed again because he, at one point, had guys looking for him, showed up to his restaurant looking for him. And they had to, do another thing, put him in a different state. And so I think since then, like him having kids and stuff like that, I think he just thinks it's best to just, you know, keep Zach Caruso, his businesses and to protect his children. And, he lives in Arkansas, he's just kind of reestablished his whole entire life as pretty much a new identity, right? Um, his past is always going to be there. He's always going to, part of him's always going to be that person, right? And then, but he's living his life now as Zach Caruso.
I'm wondering why he didn't send the message to the guys looking for him. Well, I'll give you hundreds of bosses, made guys, and captains that all cooperated. So when you start with them, then you could come talk to me afterwards. Because these same guys that are looking for people, supposedly looking for them, um, there's hundreds of guys out there that cooperated, made guys in every family. So does he say to them, "Well, why aren't you looking for them first? What are you taking your time
Um,
out looking for me when you got hundreds of yous that keep cooperating?"
Right. So what happened was he didn't even see the people. He didn't know who they were. He was gone and his wife saw this two there's two guys walking around asking about him, asking if he's from Brooklyn. His wife called the cops. And so he didn't know who it was. He didn't know what they wanted, nothing. The cops later on did find the car. It was a stolen car and a stolen license plate that these guys um, had abandoned or whatever. I don't fully remember the whole scenario there, but yeah. So he was not aware of who it was or what they wanted or anything before the cops were already there because he wasn't home. He was at the restaurant. His wife like freaked out and called the cops and stuff.
Well,
So
they're not too bright, obviously, if they're going around asking if he's from Brooklyn, if that's him.
yeah,
It's definitely not seasoned guys that are
yeah.
out
So
there.
yeah, he didn't know what they were looking for,
Yeah,
but
yeah. So at this point in his life, he doesn't come back, I guess, to our neighborhoods here. He just stays, where he lives, and that's it.
I think he does go visit family in New York from time to time,
Okay.
but he doesn't. Yeah, I don't think he's really associated with anybody from who he's associated with before.
Are you in the
I think
midst
he
of?
just keeps that life separate. I
Yeah.
think.
And he moved forward and he's successful in business and good for him. Yeah. Did you move forward in any other aspect? Are you still promoting this book? Are you out there trying to do any other projects? Are you personally going to write another Mar book? Did you enjoy it? Were you looking to do more on this genre, or are you going in another direction now?
Actually, it was really kind of funny because I was in the middle of writing a novel when Zach originally reached out to me. I was literally in the middle of it, and it was gonna be nonfiction because I didn't really know much about the mafia life and stuff, right? And so it was a book. It's a book on a woman. Uh, this takes place in Rome, right? 1950s, post war, like mafia was still kind of going on, in that area and stuff. And she's a struggling journalist, and she's been begging her boss to give her a better story, or give her a story to do. And back in the day, especially in that era and that area and stuff, it's really hard for a woman to get a really good job, like a journalist and stuff, right? And so he gives her this he gives her this story to write, and he tells her to go find out what this mob family is up to, because there's rumors going around and stuff, like what's their next plan kind of thing. And so she goes in, and she's in their territory, and she runs into a young man, drops her stuff, he helps her pick up. It's like a mystery romance novel, I guess. And she locks eyes with him, love at first sight kind of thing. And she runs into a couple different times. She tells him she's, got to write this story and stuff. Well, it's the boss's son, right? And he doesn't tell her that. She has no idea. And so he's helping her write her story, right? Because he's like, oh, I know that family well, but he doesn't tell her who he is. And so he's caught up between love and loyalty, right? And so, like I said, it's nonfiction, probably not like realistic at all,
Right.
right? But I was in the middle of writing that when Zach reached out to write his story on the mafia. As I'm sitting here, like, I don't know much about it. And so it was kind of funny, like, interviewing him and all this stuff. I'm like, I feel like a journalist, like getting, the story about a mafia life. And I was like, how did I become the subject of my own story?
Yeah.
And so I was already like interested in that stuff. And then, like, now learning all these stories and stuff like that, it's been really, really cool. And then I find out that in the midst of writing Zach's story, I got reached out to by a family member, and she had read my grandfather's journal that had been he passed away years ago, and it mentions like he was tangled up in it, like not purposely, but like the mafia followed like throughout the generations of my family all the way to my grandfather.
Right.
And so I was like, this is really cool. I need to learn more about this. And so it's just really been such an interesting topic for me. And, talking to different people like yourself and, watching these episodes of, these shows that you're in on Netflix and stuff, like it's really cool to me. And so I'm very interested in like kind of continuing this genre.
Well,
And then
you met a couple of people. I didn't mean to cut you off, but go ahead, and then I'll
no, you're fine.
finish. Y
Okay.
Go ahead. Mhm.
And so I actually spoke to uh, Louis Casman.
That's what I was just gonna say. You beat me to
Okay.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my
And so I
buddy,
spoke with
and
him.
yeah, you know who he
Yeah,
is
that's what he was
exactly, right?
saying. Yeah, he told me to tell you hi. Yeah. I spoke with him on the phone yesterday and today and a little bit, and he wants me to write his story.
Well, let
And
me cut
so,
this say so people know who he is. Louis
okay, go
Casman
ahead.
was considered the adopted son of John Gotti Sr. He would visit him. John would write him from jails all the time, and he did the eulogy at John's funeral. So if people don't know, he was very close to John Gotti Sr. So close that
Hmm.
he did the eulogy, and later on had a falling out with the rest of the Gotti family. But he was definitely somebody that was in a very much in the know of Gotti Sr. He was with them on a constant basis. For the people who don't know,
Hmm.
he's in a million pictures with him. He is uh, the real deal as far as knowing the Gotti Sr. very, very well. And Gotti loved him, treated him just what everybody said as a son. And to the extent that, like I said, he did the eulogy, he carried the casket. So you're not talking about somebody that doesn't know what he's talking about. He does know what he's talking
Right.
about.
Exactly. That's
So
why I'm
that's a great
super
story for you to
excited.
write. Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
very excited to do this for
yeah.
him. Yeah. Yeah. And then, so I was kind of like, he told me to do some research on him and stuff, and he's all over the internet, right? And so yeah, it was very interesting. And then I did all this research on the Gambino crime family, and to kind of educate myself, like going into writing this book for him and stuff. And so it's been really cool. I've learned a lot, and it's so awesome.
Well, with the mob world, it's very, it's just what my show said. It's betrayal. So we'll take, for
Hmm.
example, Jimmy D'Ambrosio that Zach mentions during his thing about fireworks. Jimmy was also, after Gotti was around the boss, Joe Messina, who was wearing a wire. Jimmy was partners with Joe Messina through his father, who passed away. And Jimmy started
Hmm.
doing construction work and housing with Joe Messina. Jimmy ended up being in the basement of Richie Gotti's cafe by John Gotti Jr. and some of his friends, and they broke his hands because he was stealing money from the fireworks business, also selling drugs. So this is what
Hmm.
goes on in that world. There is no loyalty to each other.
Right.
One second you're a friend, the next second, we're burying you somewhere or you're getting hurt very badly. So this is
Right.
exactly what Sammy Gravano people talk about. Uh, Another guy that supposedly, people had him as a tough guy, as a boss. He was in Arizona in witness protection, and a Jamaican guy, Jamaican Earl, uh, bitch slapped him. People don't know these stories, and that's very factual. And after he slapped him, Sammy went down on a slap, but didn't fight
Hmm.
back. At the time, Sammy was probably a little younger than my age now. So he wasn't an old guy not to fight back. He didn't fight back. And he had a tough guy, John Fogerty, who I know his sons, they're all tough guys. I know his brother in laws, I know his cousins, I know all of the Fogerty family. Very tough guy, Irish guy, big guy. Sammy asked John a couple of days later to hurt Earl, which he did. And these guys survive off of guys like John Fogerty. And unfortunately, John didn't have that kind of money. So Sammy basically bought protection. On their own, they're very
Hmm.
weak. And this is the reason why Sammy's hid out in Arizona all these years. So I don't have respect for a lot of these guys because I know the situation. So when guys are looking for, say, somebody like James, they should start with guys like Sammy. If you're going to look for guys, these are the guys that supposedly bosses of families that have no
Right.
backbone or they can't stand on their own 2 feet to allow somebody to bitch
Hmm.
slap you. I don't care how big the guy is, how young. You're supposed to be in that world, fight back. But anybody that lets somebody bitch slap them like that and does nothing, are spineless. And this is the
Right.
mob. This is the real mob that nobody wants to talk about. And these are factual. And actually, I did a show a couple weeks ago with John Veazey. He was there when that occurred. So this is not third hand information. I'm getting direct
Mhm.
on different stories or things that I know from the streets itself. Anyway, I got to wrap it up. It was great having you. Tell everybody how they can find you if they need you to write, if they want to follow you, if they want to support you, or anything else before you go. Anything else you want to say before you give us your contacts where everybody can reach on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I don't know what you're on.
First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on here. It's been really awesome.
You're welcome.
And as far as my books go, like I mentioned, Amazon would probably be the best place to get those at. I am on Facebook just as author Carissa Gillespie. Same thing, Instagram, author Carissa Gillespie, TikTok, author Carissa Gillespie. Just keep it all simple. And yeah, I am a certified freelance editor and publisher. I am a writer. I write for other people. I do ghostwriting. And I'm actually doing one-on-one coaching for anybody that's writing a book or is wanting to write a book. Maybe they're writing a book and they feel stuck, or they wrote a book and don't know how to edit and publish. Like, I'm doing one-on-one coaching for that. I'm also getting ready to put out some editorial videos to help people just generally with writing. And as far as my contacts, there's the social media. I have press releases out. My phone number's anywhere. It's on my Facebook if anyone needs to reach out, want me to, coach or write books or anything for them.
And don't text or call her
Yeah.
for a date. So we're just going to say it's only business.
Yeah.
Or you'll have a lot of guys trying to call you. So I had to throw that in.
It's all right. It happens.
It was
But
really,
yeah,
you did a
so
great job on the book. And the book again is
thank
called?
you. Hitman Tells All, Real Life Facts of the Mafia Witness Protection Program.
Thank you. It was great having you on and
It's great to have you.
say the
Yeah,
whole
it's
load
great
of
to be here.
James and give us a best and it's great that he moved his life forward. I hope he's a Christian and redemption and gives the right advice to young people that he runs into. Stay away from the street, go to work. My same thing I say constantly, life's too short. Don't waste it on a life of betrayal. And there is no real loyalty in the street. So
We have actually one chapter in the book that talks about that. Like, it might sound grand, but in the scheme of things,
yeah.
it's not worth it.
Yeah, read the small print because small print will tell you got two things that'll happen. You'll go to jail from people betraying you or you'll get killed. And
I believe it.
that's the end up of the street. Thank you very much once again, everybody. Follow me, John Alite. Watch my show, Betrayal. Follow me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Any questions, hit the subscribe button. It was great, everybody. See you next week. Thank you, everybody.